podcast where I'm, doing stuff. And, I don't know. This is really off the top because I didn't even think of a prompt. So I don't even know how to introduce this. It's like, what? It's the Dutcher Snedeker podcast, and you know me, Dutcher Snedeker. Yeah. Here we are again. We've crested the double digits now. We're in episode 11. And it's taken me 11 episodes to realize I don't really have a good camera angle. I need to play around a little bit more with how I, because look at all this space that's right here. I'm not centered, so it feels kind of weird. It's like I'm kind of off to the side and there should be somebody else in the frame. But, it might also be the case where you watch this later and I've cropped it. TV magic and all that. But we're on episode 11, which means there should be some sort of direction to what I like doing with this podcast. And so far, the things that have stayed consistent are me just kind of playing some kind of keyboard. Today it's the Korg Triton. Which, is a great keyboard. I used to have a Korg Karma. It's kind of like the poor man's Korg Triton. A lot of the same settings and offerings and things. Another workstation keyboard. But this, as good as it is, Korg's made better ones. But this is a classic for a lot of people. A lot of people who produce. A lot of people who, they need something that can cover a lot of ground. Maybe work with one of their computer setups. But for me, it's, I don't think I could main this keyboard. But if I had one as an auxiliary keyboard, I could have something like that where I'm playing, it's a lighter touch keyboard. It's not my favorite type of key. Yes, I can kind of glide, but it's almost like I'm flicking the keys. And they made that kind of they have that slapbacky, plasticky sound. But I didn't just want to talk about this keyboard today. In fact, I'm going to adjust where my mic is so that I can talk a little bit easier. I had a good weekend at the listening room where I've been doing this residency for, I think, about 6 weeks now. Coming up on 6 weeks. And it's been interesting to see the dynamic of the space change. More people are feeling comfortable coming out. More reservations are being made. People are adjusting to this new environment because it's, it's something that adds to the appeal of Studio Park rather than spending money and having it go down the drain. It's very, it's kind of set in place and brings in people. And Saturday was a very enthusiastic crowd. I wanted to talk with some of them, but there were, a couple tables of people who were into it and then they left because of the reservation time. So I didn't know who was there. I didn't know if they knew me. I didn't know if they had just heard there was jazz and they sought it out. It was some younger folks, so maybe they were jazz students. I don't know. The mystery. The mystery of the jazz fandom of Grand Rapids. The interesting mix. I've said this before to people. Grand Rapids has this funny thing, and maybe it's in other cities, but I've just noticed it in Grand Rapids. But mentors and mentees, a lot of them connected. A lot of people have learned from similar people. That's great. Building community, all that stuff. If you're a young high schooler sitting in with the old school, the old guard of the city, who they've earned their stripes, like you're starting to build that rapport. It's good. But then you hit a certain age bracket where you're too old to kind of be the young up and comer, but you're not old enough to be considered totally professional yet. And it's weird because, as long as I've been in this city, it's only been recently, like within the last 2 years, that I feel like I've had a little bit more, room in terms of being able to say like, hey, I want to book a gig. Here's my name. Here's what I've done. And then people have some sort of reference. But there is that weird moment when you kind of drop off a little bit. Like people kind of pay attention to you when you're in school. They catch some of the public events. They don't really, with the exception of certain people and publications and stuff, they don't really cover that underground very well. The emerging. Like you're either always emerging, you're always the new artist for some reason, or you already did your emerging when you were 18 and now it's 10 years later and now the public's caught up with emerging. So it's this disconnect between like who in the music community knows about you, hires you, works with you, talks about you. And I'm fine with not being this giant person. I don't need to have like the I don't know. I don't need fame to be the status symbol. I just want to be able to, have some level of like understanding. Like even if you don't hire me, you know what I'm up to. You know that if you do hire me, things are going to get done. It's going to sound good. I'm going to bring on people that aren't going to destroy your venue. It's not going to be a gamble. It might be, more of a gamble than certain genres that people might like in certain spaces, but I don't know. I had that thought because Saturday went so well, and I was like, who came out? Because that was really cool to like have direct interaction from the crowd and people digging it. So I don't know. One step at a time, I guess, for I just keep vamping that one note. So I'm enjoying the listening room. I'm enjoying rotating trios. I'm enjoying, I'm not taking for granted for a second that this is like, a unique opportunity for me to kind of grow as an artist, as a music businessy type, like trying to put together groups that make sense in my head for what I want to do. Because there's still that part of me that's, in undergrad 2012, just like being like, oh, who do I guess I could hire somebody. I don't know. I'll hire someone. And, just kind of being that dude who pops around to different groups, different venues. And now I have the freedom to be like, no, I'm going to hire my friends, people I like, not only do I like playing with them, but they push me to play better. Like, I want to hire those people. I don't want to necessarily hire just anyone who I might not have a direct rapport with. And I don't want to seem, when I do that, I don't want to seem selfish either. Because I want to extend opportunities to people through this listening room thing. But I'm also trying to be realistic with who I'm looking at, what I'm observing. And there's enough time to, like, I don't know, figure out who I enjoy working with, especially now that things are opening up. And making that space for people. I just love little movements like that where colors kind of change. So, anyway, I've been noticing the growing interest in not just my little nook of the scene, but more venues are starting to open up. More people I know are starting to get regular work again. It all, it's one of those things too where I'm like, is there going to be, our restaurant's going to shut down again, or capacity's going to decrease? Like, when are, normal venues opening up again, bigger venues? Not that bigger venues were ever part of my bread and butter anyway. And then, everyone was already different with how they curated stuff. Booking is like you I don't know. It's like, think of like MasterChef, the show. Like, all these people make food. That's the blanket thing, is food. And then you go down another layer and it's like, the challenge is seafood. You have to use, like, pick one of these 3 seafoods to use in a dish. And then, all right, there's a little theme around that. And you might flavor something different, present something different, prepare something different. And that's kind of, booking. The gatekeepers of all the the talent buying, they have the stuff that they like. They have the stuff they like to share with their friends, and they have the stuff that works well with the business they work with. So, not everyone's going to be on board. If let's say you're in a metal band, you're not going to play a library that often. There might be a library who finds a way for you to play, but that type of gig is closed off. So you're looking at certain venues that, might just be willing to have the noise floor or noise ceiling noise, just allow more noise. I don't want to misuse that term. So there was a funny post the other day where someone was reaching out on behalf of the community in Allendale, and they were like, hey, we are looking to book, all types of music for our, our concert series. Give us an idea, tag some of your music, your website, and we'll check it out. And then, I got hundreds of comments. Everyone from like rockabilly bands to, jazz groups to tribute groups to cover bands to, all these different kinds of, dishes, I guess, these prepared meals, being put in front of like a select few tasters. And, it's hard because music is so personal. It's hard to convince like, hey, we're professional and, people dig the music. It'd be fun to come play, because it's also, people are still going to be picky with their live music. It's not like because live music is coming back, everyone's gonna like as soon as they hear the word music, they're gonna like, oh, that plays as music, let's go. Like the only way they do that is if it's like they're stumbling into something, and or they were already there and it's like, well, I guess there's music, we'll stick around. Like a lot of people have this, relationship to music that's very background, I guess. It's weird. Like it's not like, it's not like every song I listen to is like I have to stop what I'm doing and listen to it. But a lot of people, the music's in the car when they're on, so they're paying attention to the road. The music's when they're doing a chore. The music's on when they're reading a book. The music's on when they're, with people chatting. And, that's fine. But when you translate that to a venue, it's harder to, you really got to grab people's attention. So I don't know. The strategy of like when things opening up again, you just kind of just have to do things, I guess. That's always kind of been the thing is like just do it. Get your thing in front of someone and see what happens. See who gravitates towards it or who might hate it. Weird tension resolution. What else? What else is happening in the world? A lot of things. The other thing I was thinking about this past week, because I've been doing other podcast interviews for Mitten Backstage and talking with industry people who, their work is pretty much vanished. They're still looking for work, in sound and live entertainment, all this stuff. I've been thinking about what these people can do right now. Like how can their skills be put to good use? And you want to say like, well, we'll just plan events and then people can come do sound and do lights, and not everyone's going to do that. Not everyone's going to do that except for the people who, so many stories. This could be something I could talk about right now. The whole people have a perception of music entertainment that there's if it's on a television, if it's an expensive ticket, the production's going to be flawless. There's going to be there's no dropped mic signals, there's going to be no feedback issues, there's going to be no things are too loud or things are too soft. Like everything's going to be mixed well. It's people who know the rooms they're working in, know the space. But I can tell you from working in different spaces and working with different types of festivals, I haven't worked with gigantic festivals yet, but I've worked with, like mid-tier and lower just as a participant or like, having friends so I can kind of worm my way into a little bit of the behind the scenes just to observe like what happens when people aren't on stage. And the amount, like the cocktail of things that like are put together to make a show happen sometimes are pretty insane. Like the amount of work, like I think of like, playing these like put together outdoor festivals where it's like, a team of people, like this guy's done lights before, he's bringing his rig, and this guy's done sound before, he's bringing and rigging up all of, these monitors and speakers. But then there's also like, I've seen like touring bands who just bring like, like this guy, he's our lighting guy, and I'm like, why does he look so like, out of it? It's like, well, turns out he, comes in, and he's asking for like not even discreetly, just asking for uppers. And there's a point where you're like, if I were to have like someone ask me like, do you think that drugs and alcohol? It's like, what are you talking about? That's like the whole industry. I'm like the one exception where I like don't drink anymore, and I've never done anything that's like, insane. I've never taken anything that's like, oh, this is mind altering, or this is gonna keep you up for 3 days straight, or that's just my adrenaline and caffeine that usually does that. And I'm hitting a wall with that, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. But the systems, the habits and systems that are put in place, collide. A system would be like, all right, we show up on time, we load in, everything's cool, we get plenty of time to sound check, feel out the room, get all of our equipment on stage, position it comfortably, get all of our lines, ready to be plugged in. Set up, for me, it's like I set up 3 keyboards and sometimes a laptop that's also controlling sounds, a pedal board, 2 different stands, just like, it's this list of like, I'm not just showing up. I'm not a singer, so I'm not showing up to, with a microphone and just being like, why isn't anyone ready? Which not every singer does that, but I've definitely seen a lot of singers who they kind of look around, they're like, what's taking so long? It's like, you just needed to bring you. What are you talking about? But so, that's a system. Get there on time, load in, set up, do the sound check, make sure everyone hears each other, and everyone has enough in their monitors, everyone feels cozy on stage, maybe play parts of a couple songs, feel out the room, know that it's going to change when the show starts because more people are going to come, or less people. Sometimes you're playing to like 6 people, or you're in a small space anyway, so it doesn't change that much. And, after all this is said and done, you're still like, a couple hours from when you're going to play, sometimes 3 hours. And it's like, okay, did they provide food? All right, no, they didn't provide food. Do they have drinks? Okay, they have drinks. We'll go get food. All right, is there a coffee spot nearby? Because we've been driving sometimes, or we've been, had a busy day before this, and it was a local gig. And then you get all of that set up. You're like, all right, we're close to being on stage. Get warmed up, whatever you need to do to feel loose. The band meet up, get everyone on the same page, maybe get some waters for everyone in the band, or whatever drink you might bring up on stage. Then go play the show, go up on stage. You spend the whole time doing this dance with like your music, your bandmates, the crowd, the space, the haters, the people who are super into it, the people who aren't yet convinced either way, they're just kind of observing. And then you try and make an impression. And after you make this impression, sometimes it's 30 minutes, sometimes it's 45, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's, you're the only band and it's 2 sets or 3 sets. And then you get off the stage and you wait. Sometimes you can pack up right away if you're the headliner. Most times, you wait for everything to be done. Then there's, okay, the show got done at 11 p.m. We still have probably an hour of packing up. That's breaking down all the equipment, putting it in, whatever cases we have, double checking everything, make sure we, okay, I had these cables in this bag. Let's put those back in that bag. All right, let's make sure that this goes in here. All right, let's, everything's put in cases. Let's double check. All right, here's my keyboard. Here's my synth. Here's my Moog. Here's the pedal board. Here's all the cables. Here's the, the accessories with the main keyboard. Here's my laptop, my backpack, all this stuff. All right, that's all packed up. Now, how did we get it in the car? We took 2 cars. We took 1 car. Let's, configure it again. Put that all together. And then even then, you might be done, and depending on the vibe, it's like, is it the hang? Are you doing the hang? Are you hanging at the venue a little longer? Are you hanging with the bands somewhere? You like, oh, we're going over to their house, or like, oh, there's another bar down the street if you want to join us. All right, you're doing the hang. Is this, you got to assess the hang. Were the people, folks you'd want to see after the gig, or were they not? Are you tired and need to get up early to go to the next show, or are you able to spend a couple extra hours and just like decompress with people who are at the show? But then, even then, you might make a decision that's like, oh yeah, I want to stay up a little bit later. But everyone's version of later can be like, I'm going to keep turning it up until I crash, or I'm turning it way down and I'm not going to do anything. And it's going to be really boring and potentially awkward. It's like, I could have just went to sleep. So now do that 4 times a week for as many months as you can fathomly do it. Fathomly? As many months as you could do. Do that as many times as you can do it. For the the warm months, and it's like, okay, it's a warmer months, we can travel a little bit further. Okay, the colder months, do we have enough clout and resources to go south? Like, can we go south where it's warmer and the driving's a little easier, and it's better places to play and stay than being playing a handful of winter gigs? Are we going to take the winter and work on music? Is it going to be more regional stuff? There's an ebb and flow to all of this that's like a year, 2 years, 3 years with some venues. Like, the bigger you get, like the arc of like what you're doing changes. It's no longer like, well, next year we might play, this, we're going to try and play this festival. It's like, some people are booking. I would think Electric Forest is like booking next year already, if they're not going to do it this year. And if they aren't doing it this year, then next year will be this year's lineup, and then 2023 will be a new lineup. So it's just, it's this weird thing where like, it's like, oh, cool, stuff's opening up again, but there's been this weird delaying of things. Like, even Jacob Collier, I bought a ticket to try and see him last May. And May 2020, and then of course before that things were shutting down, tours were canceled. He put out a notice saying like, hey, whenever we do things, your ticket will be valid. And I just got a notification today, and I saw him post another thing too, that my ticket is good for May 2022. So next year he's going to do this 67 city tour around the world. And it's like, okay, if he's planning that far out, he has the room to just like, the room and the audience to do things. Like, he can do more localized collaboration. He's got access to, I would assume with Quincy's money, there's access to like the safer ways to travel internationally if he, if that's the thing he wants to do. There's resources put in place for him to just take what he's already doing and plug it into a different city, a different time zone, a different culture, like whatever. Where most musicians right now are like, they're realizing how little of a safety net they had, how small of a network they had built. Because, people try to carve out their slice of the pie, and they're like, all right, I'm fine doing, I got 2 gigs a week, and then I can, use that money to go towards this thing, and I do some teaching. But then when everything's shut down, it's like, oh, I can't rely on, like, so people had students dropping, venues were closing because for safety, like, you start to realize like where what you thought was like, yeah, I'm doing all this stuff, this is going to be forever, or this is going to be, kind of the vibe forever, or for the next few years. Now it's like, oh, I haven't built anything that has my name attached to it. I haven't done anything that, stands out from other people in the area. Or even at a basic level, is like, all I've done is gig and teach. I haven't learned technology. I haven't learned how to interact with people outside of the immediate area. because I think people underestimate the power of, you might have 30 people in your corner who, like, oh, at some point these 30 people are going to come to shows or buy merch or subscribe to a thing or follow a thing, share a thing, and that's cool. But what if you multiplied that by 100 cities? What if that was like you had 30 people in Bangladesh who were that invested, and now you've built a thing that's like, oh, if I'm only left to my schedule and me, I have these things I can do and continue to have a living. Because I've always been, I don't know, I've always been that person that's like wanting to carve out their own little, not just a slice of the pie, but like carve out my own little identity. And part of it's through the collaborations I do and the bands I've been in, which I've enjoyed all those. Part of it's been through academia. Part of it's been through kind of being a young dude on the scene, not, playing gigs in high school. But it's, yeah, you have everything readjusted. So I've been thinking a lot about, as I've had 2 of the 3 podcasts get to 10 episodes. That's like, wow, that's like 2.5 months of podcasting, and it's been super fun, and it's been a lot of work that feels fulfilling. It's not work that's just work for work's sake. It's not an assignment or someone else taking up your time and talents for things. Because I'm still learning how to, do the strategic yeses. I guess I know how to say yes to things I like doing, but it's just the strategic of like, or the strategy of like, hey, maybe I'm kind of burning the candle at both ends and need to chill. Or like, oh, my sleep schedule's odd. Like this past month, because of all the video editing I've done, my sleep schedule's been all over the place because I'll do a full day and then I'll get something queued up to render, and then I'll kill, the 2 hours usually that it takes to render something. And then I'll get that, uploaded and I'll start the drafting process of like, okay, here's what I want to put in the video, the assets, the, figuring out the hashtags and tagging and all that stuff, get that all kind of queued up. And then when, I finally am like, all right, I think, that's adequate for what I need to do today. It's like 3 a.m. And then I'll sleep and naturally kind of get up before 10. So it's, 6 hours, 5 to 7 hours of sleep. But it's usually like, all right, now I have an hour or 2 where it's like in that window, am I going out to Grand Haven to do work? Am I like, I'm assessing my day and being like, am I staying in town? Do I need to stay in town today? Do I need to go out? Like, what is my goal for the day? And I mentioned earlier I was going to talk a little bit about, kind of the health revelations. Because obviously you can't do this forever. And I've been doing it. I would say I've been doing it for the deep breather is going to be working hard on this episode. Deep breath plugin, I guess. I've been doing it for about 10 years. 10 years of just like, no, I could push through it. I could do it, which, I realize I have the work ethic. As much as I don't like patting myself on the back, I'm smart, so I know how to like just deal with. I know how to like get to the nugget of a thing and just like, okay, this is what I need to get done. And then combine that with being a people pleaser, and just trying to make friends, trying to make relationships, all that type of thing in the back of your head, like, oh, this could be, if I set this up now, this could be future work, or maybe. This turns into something down the road I don't see, like, but, just be a nice person and, do this thing and sometimes extend yourself, sometimes, knock it out in an hour. Like, it all varies. And I don't mind doing work. It's just, you do it for 10 years and you're like, I'm tired. I need a diet and a body that knows how to just keep the train moving rather than, constantly having the brain that's like, all right, I think I could do that and do that and do this and I can knock that out. And then my body's just like, no, you're not. What are you talking about? You're going to do these 4 things today. Unless you don't have any caffeine, then you're going to, you're going to do 3 of them and start the 4th one. And then you're going to go home and do a mixture of relax working where you're like not giving yourself a full break. You're not fully committing to work. Some things are getting done. You're not fully decompressed. And then it's stretched out into late into the night and you start, trying to wind down for real and it doesn't happen because your brain's still partially active, trying to think about what's next. And yeah, do that for 10 years. You're bound to just get to a point where it's like, I can't do this another 10 years. So I've been thinking about that a lot too, where, I've always like pushed my self-image to the side because I tend to have like very practical outlooks about who I surround myself with, what I do. So I'm not that person who's like, oh, I'm going to be, if I'm X, Y, and Z, no one will ever. It's like, that's not true. I've made friends regardless of like what age I am, how I look, like anything. There's no, like, it's all been personality. It's all been, working, collaborating relationships. It's been like people who, they show up for me, I show up for them, that kind of thing. But in ignoring the self, you kind of get into these habits that put you in a space that's like, I can't really justify these habits anymore because all it's diminishing returns. There's no like, oh, I'm going to have like these warm fuzzies forever. I'm always going to be able to like do whatever I want, eat whatever I want, sleep however late I need to, And I've been thinking about like the easy ways to make changes. The simple ways to like look at my goals and see how changing certain habits can better align with those goals. And, that's fine. I used to beat myself up a little bit for being like, I used to play sports twice a year and I just knew how to like, just go for it. And then when those go away, you realize, oh, I never really learned how to take care of myself. It was just being in positions where that would just happen. So, it's whatever. It's it's a little insight into me. Part of my goals for going forward with this podcast is to be a little bit more to a point. We'll see as the rapport of me as a person and the audience, who those of you who are listening now, what I want to share, what I want to explore, things I would try to learn to pass on to the people who might want to learn something. I always like learning. It is what it is, I guess. I think part of it's because I'm turning 29 this year, so 30's on the horizon, and 30's like that big number that I was just talking with a friend about this. The 30's this big number that feels like, oh man, I should have everything figured out. Like I'm going to be 30. I'm going to be in my 30s. And then meanwhile, there's people like, Gary Vee being like, 30, you're just getting started. 70, you're just getting started. I'm like, what? when does something happen though? This is like if I'm 70, but I know I'm just getting started. To directly quote the cliche self-help thing. I know that, I've only been out of an academic environment for about 3 years. So yes, I was gigging. Yes, I was working on stuff outside of a curriculum. Yes, I was working on personal projects. Yes, I was working on other stuff. But when you're kind of thrown into the world and you're not in an academic environment where there's a little bit of wiggle room, there's a little bit of forgiveness, there's a little bit of the learning process, it's hard to, feel like you have a roadmap. And that's why I do so many things, is because the roadmap isn't just like, oh, we're going to take, this road down to this city and there I will find my career. It's like, no, we got to kind of drive around, see the sights, see who's out there, meet some people, figure out a combination of things you like doing. Because, very, like, even these prodigy people that are popping up on like socials all the time, especially Instagram, they aren't just talented. They have, some sort of audience, some sort of presence. They post semi-regularly. They're not just these hermits of knowledge. And people can still do that. People can still, like the bass player I hired for Saturday, he doesn't have socials. Like he's nothing. You either have his number or someone who knows him or him directly. So, there are people who still do that, but there is a little bit of there is a benefit to having some sort of reference point on different platforms. I tend to spend most of it on like Facebook and Instagram. I need to, get back on TikTok. The motivation hasn't been there because I've been working on other projects, but there's it's building another habit of like, if I'm going to interact on these platforms, I need to build the habit of, all right, I'm working on something, take a clip, put it up, engagement. AJ Hall is really good at that. He, most of his days is making drum breaks, and he'll post reels of like, of him like ABing like, oh, if you put on this filter with this beat, or like, him tracking a certain genre with like a drum setup, or he'll do a stream where he's talking about like, top down the whole process of like, here's how I'm putting together the kit, here's how I'm miking things, like, he's just sharing the process. So that's kind of what I don't know. That's my that's my goal, to be able to share the process. It's a good banner. That'll probably be the title of this episode, Share the Process. Because that's, musicians are unique. Everyone's unique. I'm special and so are you. But musicians are, we have a lot that goes into the songs you listen to, the shows you see, the journeys you see, the stories, the mythos, some people have these like mysterious pasts and backgrounds, and then other people are like, yeah, he just worked really hard and he's been in the community forever and he's got success. And then there's other people who are like, I've been, finding no traction except for my own little nugget of space, and they have to just make peace with that. But yeah, I would say sharing the process is a good goal for all this stuff. And on that note, I am gonna, I don't know, I'm probably gonna go home. I spent part of today working on a parody cover of Take On Me for a commercial, and part of the day working on a Mario Kart 8 theme song remote collaboration. And I know at some point I need to clean this office. at some point I have a lot of keyboard gear to fix, tech to figure out, all these things. And hopefully I can find a way to share all of these things with you. The wonderful viewer or listener. If you like these things called podcasts, you can subscribe. That's a good thing. Liking the video, commenting, interaction. That helps the algorithm. It helps the discoverability of stuff that you're already, you might be liking it and sharing it. And the more people that do that, the easier it is to discover what I'm up to. But you can also support directly on Patreon, patreon.com/Snedeker. We're at 7 patrons. So I'm figuring out what my 10 patron special is going to be. It's going to be a stream. It's probably going to be a mix of what I like doing. It's probably going to be like at least 2 hours. I won't commit to 3, but I just want to find a way to thank people who have been supporting me since I started this venture. Not that long ago, but it feels, with the amount of work I'm putting into it, it feels like it's been a year. But I like doing these things, and I hope you like interacting with these, listening to these, and hopefully, I don't know, you've learned something. And we'll catch you in the next episode of the Duchess Snedeker podcast for more stories and keyboards. See you next week.